Hello, this is Avish Parashar from SpeakingExpert.com. I recently wrote a blog post called What Makes for a Great Keynote, and it was based on a Twitter conversation where what I had said the elements are three things: to have a lot of humor, to tell great, compelling stories, and the third one was to give the audience a new perspective. Made total sense to me, but I had one blog reader comment asking, how do you know what the audience perspective is, and can you give us an example of how you would give them a new perspective? So that's what I'm going to do here. How do you give the audience a new perspective? Well, first you have to understand what their current perspective is. Here are a couple quick ways you can do that. Number one, ask them. Oftentimes, when you know you're going to be speaking to a group, you can send out a pre-programmed survey. Have them fill out what are their current challenges, what are their thoughts on this topic. Gather that data. If that's not possible, at least speak with the decision maker or your client, the person who hired you and is planning the event. Find out from them, where is your group at right now? What are they currently thinking? Who have they heard before? So you get a sense of where they are. If you're doing a smaller training type program, you can also ask this question right at the beginning. For example, sometimes I do an all-day program on presentation skills. I usually start by asking the audience, what are your challenges? What are your needs? And things like that. So ask the audience to get their perspective. Number two, be aware of what else is out there. So read the top books on your topic in your space. Know who the other speakers are and familiarize yourself with what they're saying on this topic, and read their blogs. Sign up for blogs on your topic. The more you're aware of what's out there, the more you can be aware of what people might be thinking. Because there's two levels. There's the people who just have their own fully formed thoughts without having any learning. For that, you need to poll the audience. For two is people who've learned and read a little bit about it, so they have some perspective. And the way you find out what that is by seeing what everyone else is saying on the topic. Once you understand those things, your job then becomes to differentiate yourself by giving them a new perspective. So a few ways of doing that. Number one, and I got this technique from a good friend of mine named Neen James, NEENJAMES.com. And she told me that, what you do is you take some of those top books on the topic, and as you read them, you create a list with two columns. And in one column, you write down everything you agree with that the author says. Number two, write down everything you disagree with. That way, you're carving out a little space for yourself. You're not just parroting what other people say. You're doing a thoughtful analysis of what's right and wrong with the leading thinkers on the topic. And then you share that with the audience. That gives them a new perspective. Number two, ask yourself what's missing. So sometimes you hear some great advice, but you know there's a little element to it that's missing. By offering that in, you can give the audience a new perspective once you figure it out for yourself. And the final way to add a new perspective is ask yourself, why is it not working? There's so much great fundamental knowledge out there that it's almost like you don't need any more speakers or books, but clearly we do because people aren't putting this to work. So ask yourself, why not? Maybe there's some clearly delineated steps that are missing. Maybe there's a slight tweak in the understanding of the principle that the audience isn't getting. Maybe it's the mnemonic or an anagram or something that they'll remember, a tool. And that's another way of giving the audience a new perspective. So as far as examples, I'll give you two, one from my own work and one from another speaker's. The most effective, powerful technique I talk about in my presentations is about saying yes and instead of yes but. And if you want more information on that, you can check out my book, Say Yes And, which you can find at sayyesand.com. Yes, that's a plug. But basically what I talk about is an improv comedy. There's an idea that you should say yes and instead of yes but. This is not earth-shattering, and it's very similar to saying think positive instead of negative. However, I'm not saying it's the most powerful thing in my program. This is what the audience told me. They would come up to me more than any other thing I talked about and tell me, hey, that idea was really useful. I think that's very powerful. That's what I'm going to apply. And I think the reason that worked is because I took a common idea, which is thinking positive instead of negative. And I reframed it in slightly different terms. I added that what's missing thing. And I asked people, ask yourself, how often do you hear yourself saying yes but? How often do you hear others saying yes but? Can you switch it to yes and? Then I did a little exercise with them, which forced them to experience it. Both of those things gave them a new perspective. A very simple way of doing it, just a little bit different wording, a simple phrase that they can remember, open their minds up. Another example is from my friend David Newman of doitmarketing.com. That's doit, D-O-I-T, marketing.com. And he's got a great book called Do It Marketing, which you should read if you're a small business owner looking to build a business. And he's got a great technique in there where a lot of marketers talk about the difference between features and benefits. And this is something we've all heard. There's no new perspective when someone starts talking to you about features versus benefits. However, he then goes into a whole additional technique, which he says that's not enough. Remember the technique about what's missing, what's not enough? And then he then has this whole technique, you have to read the book to get the full thing, but about how you go into the opposite. So if this feature gives you this benefit, say this software makes you more efficient, which is the benefit, well, what's the opposite of that? Well, the opposite of efficiency is laziness. So then, or it's a waste of time and money. So then you write your marketing copy based on solving that negative's problems. So as you market, you don't say this makes you more efficient. You say this software will help you stop wasting time. Again, a very simple example, but it's an additional technique that you don't hear everywhere else, gets you saying, oh, now I think I can do this. So to add a new perspective, first understand your audience's perspective, understand what the other thought leaders on this topic are talking about, and then carve out your own space by adding something new, giving a different perspective, making it more memorable, or asking yourself what's missing, and then filling in the blanks. So hopefully that helped. Leave your comments below if you have any questions about that. And be sure to visit speakingexpert.com to grab your copy of the free ebook, Six-Figure Speaker Secrets, the 7 steps to getting your first paid speaking work in 90 days or less. That's at speakingexpert.com. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you again soon.